तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुं श्रीयुतः पदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सगणा रघुनाथां तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदां सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिद्धयोगेन च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। Like to welcome all of you for our Gita classes. We are now on the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is entitled as the Yoga of the Supreme Person. The last week, we had seen the first part of the 15th chapter, where we discussed the first 6 verses of the first chapter of the 15th chapter of the Gita. And in the first 6 verses, we discussed of the concept of home or hotel. And in this, we discussed about how Krishna is describing the material world and the spiritual world through an analogy of an inverted tree. So he speaks about this concept of Urdhva Mula Dashakam, where he says that this material world is like a inverted reflection of the spiritual world. The spiritual world is the original, and the material world is a reflection of it. And everything in the material world appears upside down. So just like if there is a tree that is standing on the bank of a lake, a still lake, and you see the reflection of the tree in the lake. So naturally, in the reflection, everything is upside down. The root is on top and the branches are below. Similarly, in the material world, everything is upside down compared to the spiritual world. So whatever is the highest in the spiritual world is the lowest in the material world. And whatever is the lowest in the spiritual world is the highest in the material. And therefore, the material world is an inverted reflection of the spiritual world. So that is what we discussed the last time. And then we spoke about how, so we were speaking about the idea of how one should learn from this tree. So we spoke about how this tree is a reflection of the spiritual world, but this tree is the inverted reflection. And the only way to deal with this tree is cut it out. So Krishna speaks about asanga shastrena dridena chitva. That means the only way to get out of this tree is cut down this tree using the weapon of knowledge. So we were discussing all these concepts the last time. So now we'll go a little further and start discussing about what Krishna is saying about what happens to those people who do not go to the spiritual world. So what happens to all those people who don't go to the spiritual world? That is seen in the 7th verse. So in the 7th verse of the Gita, Krishna speaks a very interesting concept. So in the 7th verse, Krishna is saying, Mamayavamso jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatanaha, mana shastani indriyani, prakriti stani karshati. He uses the word karshati here. The word karshati means struggling hard. So the living entities in the material world are Krishna's eternal fragmented parts. But due to the conditioned life, they are struggling hard with the six senses, which includes the mind. So, what is the meaning of this? The living entity in this material world are struggling hard. So, the word is used is karshati. Karshati means lot of struggle. What is the struggle that we're talking about in this material world? The struggle in the material world is very obvious, isn't it? If I ask all those people who are on this call right now, how many of y'all have no struggles at all? I don't think even one person will raise their hands. Because the very fact that you are in this material world means there will be struggle. Either you're struggling against old age, you're struggling against some disease, you're struggling against some relationship, you're struggling to earn money, you're struggling to make ends meet, struggling with the traffic. There are so many types of struggles in the material world. And the mind is always there to trouble you, isn't it? So, this is the nature of the material world. The nature of the material world is karshati. That means there is endless struggle here in the material world. There's no end to the struggles in the material world. So, this struggle is described in our scriptures in a very interesting way. It is called samsara chakra. Samsara chakra means the wheel of birth and death. Why is it called a wheel? The reason it is called a wheel is because it is a continuous cycle. So Krishna, he says, the living entity in this material world, verse number 8, carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, just like air carries aromas. Thus, he takes one kind of body and again quits to take another kind of body. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, a certain type of eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So such a person essentially continues in the cycle of birth and death. So the body gives you many facilities to fulfill your desires. But you have to be careful what type of desires you have. Like there was a man who went to cut wood in the forest. And he was cutting wood, piling it up. He was really exhausted. He sat under a nice shady tree after some time of working very hard. And he just thought to himself. He said, just wish all the wood chops itself. The moment he wished like that, suddenly all the trees around that area chopped themselves and stacked themselves nicely. He was amazed. How did the wood get cut on its own? And he looked under the tree in which he was sitting. It was a kalpavriksha tree. It was a wish fulfilling tree. And he was so happy. He said, I just wish I get a beautiful wife. Suddenly, next to him was seated the most beautiful girl that he had ever seen in his life. And then he said, I wish I had a beautiful palace to live in. And filled with so many servants. Suddenly, there was a massive palace filled with thousands of servants. He went on and on, asking for many, many things, and every single desire he had got fulfilled. And by this time, it had become very dark and it was late in the evening. And suddenly the sun went down and he started looking around. He realized he's in a jungle. Though he has a palace and all that, he's still in the middle of a jungle. He just thought, oh, the sun has set and it's in the middle of the jungle. What if a tiger comes and attacks me? Suddenly, a tiger actually pounced on him, attacked him, and killed him. So much for wishing. Moral of the story is that uh, be careful what you wish; it might get fulfilled. So we are all caught in the cycle of birth and death. And what is that is driving us in the cycle of birth and death? We are all stuck in the cycle of birth and death because we don't have the eyes to see this cycle. So the cycle, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi, this whole cycle, it is not something that is very easy to understand because you need something known as Jnana Chakshu to be able to understand the cycle of birth and death. To be able to understand that we are all in the middle of the cycle of birth and death. So Krishna is saying in this, in 10th verse of the 15th chapter, the foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. So the words that Krishna is using is Pashyanti Jnana Chakshusha. Jnana Chakshusha means eyes trained with knowledge. It is not ordinary eyes. It is eyes trained with knowledge. There was a guy called Sheikh Chili. He was sitting on a tree, on a branch of a tree, very tall branch of a tree. And he had a saw in his hand, he was cutting the branch. He was cutting the branch on which he was sitting. Imagine how stupid that is. There was a fellow who was passing by from below. This fellow looked up at Sheikh Chili and he told him, "Hey, are you gone mad? Don't cut this branch, you will fall down." The Sheikh Chili thought that this fellow is very envious of me. He doesn't want me to progress. Therefore, he's telling me things to discourage me. He continued cutting. The branch broke and he actually fell down. The Sheikh Chili thought this fellow who predicted, he must be an astrologer because he could tell something that didn't happen also. What an intelligent fellow he is. So Sheikh Chili, this fellow, he only what missing in him? He didn't have Jnana Chakshu, the eyes to see what can happen. See, anyone who has the eyes to understand deeper things in life will immediately understand the basic teachings that Bhagavad is trying to tell us. But unfortunately, someone who's completely absorbed in material things, he will never ever understand. Like say for example, um, all of you have been attending these Gita classes for almost now last 1.5 2 years now. And there are many philosophical concepts that we discussed. And many of the philosophical concepts you understood and absorbed it also. But imagine I'm giving this Gita class, and in front of me are sitting people who's a group of drunkards who are just completely intoxicated, drunk, and they're sitting to hear my lecture on Bhagavad Gita. How much will they understand? How much will they absorb? Or imagine a group of people who are completely into making fun and frolic and teasing and this and that. Will they even understand what I'm trying to tell? Will they understand the gravity of what the discussion that we're having? You need a certain type of eye, certain type of vision to understand it. So Krishna is in the next verse, the 11th verse of this chapter. He says, the endeavoring transcendentalist who's situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they might try to. Just take a very simple example. A dead body is lying over there on the floor. Now, different people are looking at the dead body. And this dead body is the body of a very beautiful actress lying on the floor. Different people are looking at the dead body. A young man who is mesmerized by this actress, when he looks at this body, He's thinking, oh my God, I lost an opportunity to enjoy this body. A dog might be thinking, wow, such juicy bones. I wish I could bite them. A philosopher who's looking at the dead body might be thinking, this is life. Ultimately, no matter how beautiful you are, this is a situation that will happen to you. Might give a very philosophical way of looking at death. And then there could be another scientist who is trying to analyze the cause of death. They might be what do you call these people? Um, Post-mortem expert who's trying to find out, looking at the body, what is the exact time of death, and whatever else. Every person looking at the same body, but based on the kind of jnana chakshu that they have, they see different things. Same body only, but what you see is different, isn't it? Similarly, life is same for everybody. But depending on what kind of eyes you have, you see different things. Rather, you perceive different things. And that is what Krishna is called as Pashyanti Jnana Chakshusha. He says, cycle of birth and death is visible to everybody. Is there anyone here who has never experienced death in the family? Never experienced death in the nearby close relatives, etc.? No one will ever say that. Because in everyone's family, someone has died. But how many people, after going through an experience like this, really come to an understanding of what really happened? How many of us we actually question the concept of life itself when we go through these painful and testing moments of life? And that's why Jnana Chakshu is so very important. The question is, how do we develop this Jnana Chakshu? How do we develop this kind of Jnana Chakshu which helps us see the cycle of birth and death going on and on and on and on? The way to develop the Jnana Chakshu, um, that we're going to see in the next verse. By essentially, it is by appreciating God as a creator, maintainer, and provider. Such a person can be freed from this banyan tree by cultivating attachment, love, and surrender, by knowing God as a maintainer, creator of this material world. So in the 12th verse, Krishna is giving us a very interesting way of understanding, or rather of getting out of the cycle of birth and death. So what is the way that he's giving? Look at this. Look at the discussion that is going to happen at this point in time. Krishna is saying, Yad Aditya Gatam Tejo, this is verse number 12. Jagat Bhasyate Khilam, Yat Chandramsi Yak Chagno, Tat Tejo Hidi Mamakam. He says the splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. The splendor of the moon and the splendor of the fire also from me. Beauty of a product implies the intelligence of the creator. God created the human eye. What a creation it is. Can any scientist, any intelligent, person who is very, very skilled, create anything like the human eye? Is it even possible to create anything like the human eye? It's impossible, isn't it? You can just only replace one eye to another eye. You can't create a human eye. God created the human eye. What an invention it is. Modern science for hundreds and thousands of years, if you're going to continue doing invention, I don't think anybody will create the human eye. God created animals, silly animals, the bat. Um, Man made a radar system learning from the bat. But can man make a bat? So perfect. God created a spider. Man made robotics, learning from the spider, which is God's creation. God created the honeybee. Man created work hierarchy system, learning from the honeybee, which is God's creation. God created coconuts. Man created water bottles. Learning from the coconut, which is God's creation. God created ant hills. Man created engineering buildings, learning from ant hills. God created the scorpion. Man created physical sensors, learning from the scorpion, which is God's creation. So, when we look at God's creation, it fascinates you. We understand that God is the maintainer of this body. When we look at the sunlight, we understand that all the vegetation in this world is growing because of the sunlight that God has given us. So when we look at the moon, we understand God is the supreme maintainer of this body. And when we look at the moon, we understand that the moon is the one that is giving taste to the vegetation. So all the vegetables and fruits that you eat in this world, the taste that you experience, every vegetable has a unique taste, isn't it? Of course, we put so many masalas that we forget the original taste of it. But the fact is that the taste in that vegetable comes from the moon, and moon is created by God. Um, when we understand that God maintains us, it is a significant improvement in our own consciousness. We all think some company is maintaining us. We all think some government is maintaining us. We all think some family is maintaining us. But you should understand the source of our income is not the source of our maintenance. The source of our income is not the source of our maintenance. What does that mean? There's a very interesting story in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu once asked Srivas Thakur, he said, "You're always singing and dancing, chanting the holy names of God. Who provides for your family? Don't you need to work and earn some money? Take care of your family?" Srivas Thakur, when he was asked this question by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, mind you, this is not something that you can imitate. This is not something you can, apply in your life because you're not Srivas Thakur. And nor is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asking you this question, isn't it? This is just for your inspiration to understand that God maintains us. And there are some people who have that faith that God maintains us. Srivas Thakur, when he heard this question, that, how do you maintain yourself? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he asked this question to Srivas, Srivas heard this and he closed his eyes and he clapped his hand 3 times. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't understand. He said, "Don't play with me, just answer my question, Srivas." Srivas said, "Whenever I need something, I just clap my hands 3 times. Before I finish clapping my hands, Krishna provides." So you can't clap your hand and say iPhone. That's not the point. The point is that here is a person who is so much convinced that God provides for me that actually God provides for him. Now, from our point of view, what does it really mean? Have you ever come across a day when vegetables don't grow? Have you ever come across a day when rice doesn't grow? Have you ever come across a day when the sun doesn't come up? Have you ever come across a day when the wind stops blowing and air's oxygen supply is non-existent? No. God is always there to take care and provide for us in so many ways. We should just have the faith that God provides. And that kind of faith is something that Krishna is trying to instill here in us by talking to us about all these examples. So Krishna is telling uh, in this chapter, so he says, "I enter into each planet and my energy they stay in orbit." So he says, the splendor of the moon, splendor of the fire, it all comes from me. We cook, isn't it? But when we cook, we use fire, isn't it? Where does that fire come from? So this whole idea of fire is something that really, really is so amazing. Have you ever looked into the fire and looked into the flame of the fire? There is something mystical about fire, and it is not an element that human beings can create. It is not an element that human beings have invented. It is a natural element. It's one of the Pancha Mahabhuta. Without fire, nothing works. In fact, in our own belly, in our own stomach, there is fire. It's called the fire of digestion. Vaishwanaro. That is the fire of digestion within our bellies. So if the fire of digestion goes away, you won't even be able to digest the food that you're eating. Uh, once there was a king who ruled the land of Andhra. And every day, two beggars used to come to him for begging. And he always gave them food and money. On receiving the alms, one beggar always said, God provides. And the other beggar who was younger, he would say, our king provides. One day, the king gave them a little more money than usual. And when the older man cried out, saying, God provides, the king got really annoyed. He said, hey, I am the one who is providing you every day. I am the one who is feeding you. And every day you keep saying God provides. What is this? So the king thought, it is time now this fellow learns who is the real benefactor. The next day, after he had given them alms, he asked the beggar to go on a narrow path. There was a road that was not used much. And the king said, go on that road. And he said, I have provided for one of you. And he said, God will provide for the other one. So this king, he made sure that there was a purse of gold kept on the path in which the beggars would walk. Now, as the beggars were passing by that road, the beggars were thinking, why did the king send me in this direction, this way? Maybe he wants me to enjoy the privacy of this road, like that he started thinking. And he was just enjoying the free road, and he was just so this beggar who always said the king provides, he thought the king is wanting him to just enjoy the road. So he walked on this road with his eyes closed, and he's just enjoying the breeze, enjoying the feel of empty road like that. And as he was walking, he somehow missed the purse. He didn't see the purse because he was just so absorbed and enjoying himself. And the beggar who was coming behind him, he picked up the purse. The next day, the king asked the beggars, have you found anything? And the beggar, who was always saying the king provides, he said, it was such a beautiful road, but I couldn't find anything. The other person said, I found a purse of gold. God provides. Now the king was getting really irritated. He was determined to show these people that God doesn't provide, I provide. So the next day, he called the beggars again. After this whole episode happened, beggars were going away. He called the beggars back again. And he gave the younger one, the one who always said that the king provides, he gave him a pumpkin. And that pumpkin was hollow completely from within. And it was filled with gold coins. And obviously, the beggar didn't know that this pumpkin was filled with gold coins. And he gave the pumpkin to the younger beggar. Now, the beggar, he took the big pumpkin home, And on his way, as he was going home, he thought, what will I do with this pumpkin? Useless thing it is. Might as well sell this pumpkin and get some money. He went to to some vegetable seller and he sold the pumpkin for a few coins. The next day, the king called the two beggars and he asked if anything happened the previous day. The young beggar said, nothing, sir, except that I got a few coins by selling your pumpkin. And the other beggar, the king asked, did something happen with you? So the other beggar said, yes, sir, something happened with me. As I was going home, I stopped by a shop. And the shopkeeper called me to give me a pumpkin. Because I was just begging alms, walking around, he gave me a pumpkin. I went home and cut open this pumpkin. And I found this pumpkin filled with gold coins. And I said, God provides. And then the king understood that actually he is not the one who provides, it is God who really provides. So all of us, we might think that this boss is providing for us, this family is providing for us, but the fact is that the only person that is really providing for us is God. And that's what we understand from the story. So God is not only the fire outside, but also the fire of digestion inside. God is the Paramatma within our hearts. So we understand that everything in this world is provided by God. So as I said, God is Krishna says, I am the fire of digestion in every living body. I am the air of life, outgoing and incoming, by which I digest the four kinds of foodstuff. And then Krishna says, I am seated in everyone's heart as a Paramatma. I am seated in everyone's heart as a Paramatma. And from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. And indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta and knower of the Vedas. This verse is a very beautiful verse. Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham hridasanni vishto matha smriti jnanam apohanam cha. Vedesha sarver aham eva vedyo vedanta krit veda videha chaham. So he says, I am seated in everyone's heart as a Paramatma. So what is the role of the Paramatma in our hearts? First, memory, knowledge, forgetfulness. Remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness comes from God only. If you want to remember something, without the Paramatma's help, you can't remember anything. And if you want to forget something also, without the help of the Paramatma, you can't forget. There are so many people in this world who want to forget different episodes that have happened to them in their lives. But unfortunately, they can't forget it only. And without the help of the Paramatma, without the sanction of Paramatma, you can't remember and you can't even forget. Imagine that. Even to forget, we need the help of Paramatma. Forget remembering. For remembering, we definitely need help of Paramatma. But even to forget trauma that happens in our life, we need help of Paramatma. So knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness comes from the Supreme God. And he says, by all the Vedas, I am to be known. So this is the way Krishna is presenting himself in the Gita. So he says, when we understand that Krishna is the one who is to be known at the end of all the Vedas, he is the one who is maintaining us. He's the one who is providing for us. He's the one who is taking care of us. So when we understand all these things, we realize that God is our best friend. He is in our heart. The question is, if God is our best friend and He is in our heart, then why do some people suffer in the jail of this material world? Krishna answers that question in the next verse. So the next verse, which we are going to see now, is the next series of verses, 16 to 19, is the essence of the entire 15th chapter. In fact, it is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. And it's beautiful. These three verses that we're going to be discussing now are some of the most beautiful verses of the Gita. You can learn these three verses. And at least you can make sure that you understand these three verses. So if God is the best friend, He's our best friend, He's our maintainer, He's in our heart. Everything that we do in our lives is provided by God only. So if God is our best friend and He is in our heart, why do some people suffer in the jail of this material world? That we will see in the next verse. People in the material world are imperfect because they don't obey God. While those in the spiritual world are perfect because they obey God. That's the simple difference between the two. So when we say that Krishna is the Paramatma within our heart, what does it really mean that Krishna is Paramatma within our heart? What does it really mean that Krishna is there within us? There was a king who had 4 wives, and this king was on his deathbed. He spent his entire life taking care of his wives and loving them and really doing so much for them. At the end of his life, when he knew for sure that he's dying, he called his four wives and he asked them, "My dear wives, will you come with me? I'm dying." First wife said, "As soon as you die, I'll go away." The second wife, the king was shocked because he had pampered this wife the most. He took the most care of this particular wife. And this person is saying, "As soon as you die, I'll go away." The king turned to the second wife and he said, "At least will you come with me?" The second wife said, "I will come with you till to the crematorium. After that, I will go away." He was shocked. He said, "Come on, what is this? I've done so much for you." Then he turned to the third wife. The third wife says, "As soon as you die, I'll go to somebody else." He was even more shocked. He said, "What? While I'm alive, you're telling me this?" Then he turned to the fourth wife. This fourth wife was the one that he never really took care at all. The most neglected of the four wives. And the fourth wife said, "Don't worry, I'll come with you wherever you go." He was in tears. He neglected this fourth wife the most, and yet she was the one who was ready to take care of him the most. And who are these four wives? The first wife represents the body. As soon as we die, the body leaves us. Instantly, the body kind of disowns us. The second wife is family and friends who can come up to the graveyard, to the crematorium with us. The third wife represents the possessions that we have, all the wealth and the money. As soon as you die, it'll go to somebody else, isn't it? As soon as you're dead, all your wealth is gone to someone else. Somebody else owns that wealth. The fourth wife is the Paramatma. And this is the person that we neglect the most in our lives. And the Paramatma is the one that is most loyal to us. Because the Paramatma is going to be with us even beyond our death. And therefore, in the last three verses of this chapter, Krishna is giving us a very beautiful essence of the whole Gita. And in this last sequence of verses, Krishna talks about a very beautiful concept. Krishna says there are two classes of beings in this world: the fallible and the infallible. The fallible means the imperfect people, and the infallible means perfect people. In this material world, every living entity is fallible or imperfect. And in the spiritual world, every living entity is infallible or perfect. There was once a prince who was so obsessed with his own beauty. If any traveler came to his kingdom, to his palace, the prince would ask them, "Have you ever seen anyone as handsome as me?" Obviously, no one ever saw anyone as handsome as this prince. So all the travelers, everybody who came, they were just amazed by this question and the beauty of this prince. So one day, a traveler that came said to him, "I don't think there's anyone in this world that is as good looking as you. I don't think even God can be as handsome as you." Like this traveler said. Now, this made the prince very happy. He was very excited. He went around telling everybody that I think I'm more handsome than God. One day, two visitors uh, identify themselves as God. And he says, and they came to this prince and they said, "We have come to see if you are as handsome as us, as you claim." So the prince looked at them and he said, "Am I not?" He said, the gods told him, little while before, when you were asleep, we came and visited you. But At that time, you were a little more handsome than now. They asked him, how come your looks decline a little bit in a few hours? So the prince was puzzled a little bit. He started asking all his servants, um, did I look better in the morning? The servants, they didn't understand. They said, no, you look the same. So these people said, we are gods. One of the visitors, he said, we can see what the servants can't see. Their vision, the servant's vision is imperfect. And they said, we'll prove it to you. They said, bring a bowl of water. So then a bowl of water was brought. The god asked the servants to study it carefully, the bowl of water, and they said, go away. So the servants saw the bowl of water very carefully and they went away. When they were gone, you know what the gods did? The gods removed half a spoonful of water from the bowl. Only half a spoonful. The servants were called back in. They asked him, look at the water. Is there any change in the water? Servants looked into the bowl of water. They said, no. Perfectly same. They could not see that half a spoon had reduced in the water. The gods told this fellow, just like they could not see that half a spoon is less in the water, similarly, your beauty has come down a little bit. They couldn't see. The prince got shaken up, thoroughly shaken up by this thought that his beauty deteriorated from the morning. And he was so disturbed. He said, my beauty is diminishing day by day, and life, I'm short lived. So he started thinking, I should be thinking of something eternal. After that, he never looked at himself in the mirror. And then eventually, he actually renounced and became a great sadhu. Because he started thinking from this point of view of how I can, look at a more eternal form of life rather than the depreciating beauty of this world. So, this verse of the Gita talks about two types of people. There are fallible and infallible people. Perfect and imperfect people, right? Perfect people are those who are concerned with the eternal aspects of life. And imperfect people are those who are absorbed and concerned about the temporary nature of life, the temporary aspects of life. Imperfect people are aspiring for perfection. And the perfect people are not aspiring for perfection in this world. They are aspiring for perfection beyond this world. Now, the question is there a difference between perfect people and God? So, Krishna starts by saying there are two types of people in this world, the perfect or the infallible and the fallible or imperfect. So, these two people, fine. Imperfect people are in the material world, and perfect people are in the spiritual world. The question is there someone beyond perfect? Or is there a difference between the perfect people in the spiritual world and God? That he answers in the next verse. In the next verse of the 15th chapter, Krishna is saying, Uttama Purushastvanya Paramatmeti Udharatha Yo Lokatrayam Avisya Vibharti Avya Ishwara. He says, besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the Lord Himself, who has entered into these worlds and is maintaining them. So, there are two types of people, perfect and imperfect. And beyond the perfect and imperfect is the Supreme God. He's not within the category of perfect also, he's not within the category of imperfect also. He's beyond perfect and imperfect. And he is the one who maintains this world. One time, a disciple asked the Guru, where is God? The Guru said, everywhere, in everyone, and in everything. So then the disciple was going home after some time. So when the disciple was going home, one huge elephant came charging towards him. And the elephant driver, the Mohor, who was sitting on the elephant, he started shouting, "Get out of the way! Get out of the way!" The elephant has gone mad. So the disciple, he started thinking, he remembered the lesson the Guru taught him. He said, God is everywhere. He's in the elephant also, he's in me also. Why would God attack God? He said, no problem. The elephant will not attack me. He just stood there. The elephant reached him, picked him up, threw him, with his trunk. Somehow this fellow fell on a haystack. His life was saved. But he was completely shaken up and completely confused. He went to his guru and he asked him, you said God is in everything and everywhere, but why did the God inside the elephant not see me? Why did the God in the elephant threw me like that? So bad. Why did that God act so bad with this God? The guru, he looked at him and he said, you stupid fellow. It is true that God is in everything. He's in the elephant. But he's also in the fellow who's sitting on top of the elephant shouting at you, get out from the way. Why didn't you listen to that God? That's when, that's when the disciple understood that we have to, God is in everything and everyone, but we have to learn to discriminate also, which form of God or which aspect of God to listen to. So, God constantly is giving us indications in every activity in our lives. He's present everywhere. It depends on us to understand Him. The mercy is there to receive, but we have to extend our hands and collect it. So, Krishna in these 3 verses he speaks. First, he says there are 2 types of people, perfect and imperfect. Perfect people are in the spiritual world, imperfect people are in the material world. And the next verse he says, beyond the perfect and imperfect, there is a third person who is me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who maintains the whole world. The question now is there any proof that God is a Supreme Person? That we will see in the next verse, where God is talking about who He is. This is verse number 18 or 15 chapter. Krishna says, Yasmat Sharam Atitoham Aksharat Api Chottama Atosmi Loke Vedeja Pratitha Purushottama. He says, because I am transcendental, beyond the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that supreme person. So when Krishna is saying, I am transcendental, what does it mean? The word transcendental means he is unaffected by the modes, like the fallible people of this world. We are all affected by the 3 modes of material nature. We are affected by the mode of goodness. We are affected by the mode of ignorance. We are affected by the mode of passion. But Krishna is beyond the 3 modes. And because he is unaffected by the modes, like the fallible people of this world, and since he is the creator, the maintainer, and the destroyer of everything, he is the greatest. For he is able to do all this. So if he is able to do all this, so that means if he is able to create, maintain, destroy, he is unaffected by the 3 modes. Krishna says, I am a person. So he says, this is verse number 19. He says, Yoma evam asam modo janati purushottamam sa sarva vidhi sa sarva vid bhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. He says, whoever knows me as a supreme personality of Godhead without doubting is said to be understood as a knower of everything. And he therefore engages himself in full devotional service, O son of Bharata. So, Krishna is a person. That's the most important thing. So, don't think God is just a power. God is just some kind of force, some kind of energy. No, he is a person. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, Purushottama, means Purusha Uttama. The topmost Purusha is known as Purusha Uttama. So for someone who knows Krishna as a person, such a person is able to understand that here is someone who is not just a concept, who is not just a thing, he's a person actually. There's a very beautiful story. There was a man who was worshipping Lord Vishnu, the deity of Vishnu. His desire was not getting fulfilled only. So much arti, so many offerings, and so much flowers. He was doing so much worship of Vishnu. But his desire was not getting fulfilled only. Some material desire he had. So somebody advised him, worship Lord Shiva. He is Ashutosh. He is very easily pleased. So he kept the deity of Lord Shiva next to the deity of Vishnu. And he started worshipping Vishnu, worshipping Lord Shiva. Once he offered incense to Lord Shiva. I mean, I'm sure all of you all have offered incense to God, right? So when he was offering incense to Lord Shiva, the smoke from the incense, the fragrant smoke from the incense, was going towards Vishnu. In one room, you have two deities, you know. Obviously, the smoke, the incense that you're offering one deity will go to the other deity also, right? So the smoke was, the fragrance was going towards Lord Vishnu. And this fellow, he took two cotton swabs and he put it in the nostril of Lord Vishnu. He said, you can't smell it, not for you. Imagine that. And he put this cotton swabs on the nose of nostril of Lord Vishnu, is blocking the nostril. He said, you didn't give me anything, so why should you enjoy the incense? And that very instance, Lord Vishnu appeared in front of him. And he said, I am very pleased with you. Ask me for anything. Man said, what is this? I did so much artis and so many offerings to you. That time you didn't come. Now I put this cotton swab to block your nose from inhaling the fragrance that I'm offering Lord Shiva. How come you appeared? The Lord told him, till today, you treated me like a stone. But today, for the first time, you treated me like a person by putting that cotton swab in my nose. And this means that you recognize that I can smell, which means that you can recognize I'm a person. And the man recognizing the supremacy of the Lord and his own foolishness, he fell down and surrendered to the Lord. And the Lord in turn offered him liberation. The answer to this, the lesson that we learn from this story is that Krishna is a person. Don't treat him like a thing. Don't treat him like some superpower. He's a person just like you and me, but he's a supreme person. And therefore, when you treat him like a supreme person and try to worship him, connect with him like a person, he also reciprocates. So the last verse of this chapter is what the second last verse. What is the result of knowing God as the supreme person? The practical result of knowing God as the supreme person is that devotional service begins. So Krishna says in this 19th verse, whoever knows me as a supreme personality of Godhead without doubting is to be understood to be the knower of everything. And he, therefore, engages himself in full devotional service. The result of knowing that God is a person, immediately you start worshipping him and doing devotional service to him. One day, a disciple sought permission from his guru to go on a pilgrimage with some of his, god brothers, other disciples. The guru said, "Fine, you go." And he wrote a number on one slip of paper and told him that he would get 1 rupee every day to meet his expenses. So the disciples took the blessings of the guru and carefully preserved that paper, in his pocket. He joined the pilgrimage. Every day he would get a rupee. Because in those days, 1 rupee was a lot. You could do it's very valuable actually. So the disciple would not purchase any eatables for himself, but so what he would do was the disciple, first he was thinking that should I just buy things for myself with this 1 rupee? But he said no, I should also serve somebody else with it. So what he would do is every day he would buy something and he would give half of it to a saint. After a few days, he was about to leave that particular spot, and he went and sought the blessings of that saint. That saint took from him that slip of paper which the guru gave him, and the saint added a zero to the one. So that guru, original guru of his, wrote one and gave him. So every day he was getting 1 rupee. Now this fellow spent a few days with that saint and served the saint by giving him half of his food. The saint became very happy and he added 1 zero. So from that day onwards, the disciple every day he started receiving 10 rupees mystically. Somebody would come and give him. Somehow he would find 10 rupees every day. So the disciple would, he started serving one more saint with that money that he got. So the disciple kept moving from one place to another, and he reached Haridwar. On the way, he kept serving a rishi, a muni, and so many people. One rishi at some point of time was so pleased with this person, he added one more zero. So from that day, he started receiving 100 rupees every day. And also he started getting so much. At one point, he thought he'll buy a very special gift for his guru. So now that he thought he had that figure, written by his guru had reached 100, and he felt the guru only wrote one. The guru only wrote one for me. But because I am so nice and so good, I made that one into 100. So he became a little proud of that. The disciple reached back to where his guru was. The guru somehow sensed the pride. And what the guru did was, he just erased that one in front of that, 2 zeros. So all that was left with him was 2 zeros. And from that day onwards, he stopped getting anything. He was just getting 0 rupees specifically. Because of that one number that was in front, those 2 zeros were very valuable. But when that one went away, the 2 zeros mean nothing. So God is like that one number. And we add a lot of value, a lot of zeros in our life, throughout our life. Now we add one big zero, which is our education. We add another big zero, which is our corporate jobs and careers. We add another zero, which is our family and relatives. We add another big zero, which is our house, our bank balances. So we keep adding many zeros in our lives. But we forget that without that one, those zeros mean nothing. So you may have a lot in your life, but without that supreme person being right in the start of your life, those zeros mean nothing at all. So somebody who understands that Krishna is the supreme person, he immediately starts engaging in devotional service because he knows he has found that one. And now all the zeros make more sense because of that one existing right at the beginning. And therefore, he prioritizes Krishna in the beginning of his life, at the beginning of his day, and he chants his holy names and constantly engages in his devotional service. Now, the last verse of this chapter. What is the result of engaging in devotional service? What is the result of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead? That we will see in the next verse. This is the last verse of this chapter. Look at this verse. Krishna says, Iti guhyatamam shastram idam uktam mayanaga etad budhva buddhimansyat krita krityascha bharatam. He says, this is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise and his endeavors will know perfection. So Krishna is saying, whoever knows this, what? That he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Essence of all this. So he says there are two types of people in this world, the perfect and the imperfect, fallible and infallible. The fallible people exist in the material world and infallible people exist in the spiritual world. But beyond the fallible and infallible, beyond the perfect and imperfect in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, anyone who understands Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the maintainer and creator of this world, and anyone who understands him, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as a Purusha, as a person, such a person will immediately engage in devotional service. And when one engages in devotional service, such a person will become wise and his endeavors will know perfection. So, this is the essence of what Krishna is trying to say. One time, the sages gathered together to find out who is the greatest. They looked to the sky and they thought that the sky is the greatest. They went to the sky and they asked the sky, "Are you the greatest?" The sky said, "No, no, the wind is greater because he can blow me, away." So they went to the wind and they asked the wind, "Are you the greatest?" He said, "No, no, the mountain is greater because he can stop me." So they went to the mountain and they asked him, "Are you the greatest?" He said, "No, no, I am not the greatest because the earth is the greatest because she is holding me." They went to the earth said, "No, no, Vishnu is greatest because he is supporting me." They went to Vishnu and he told them, "Yes, I am the greatest, but there is one who is greater than me also. And that is my devotee because he carries me in his heart. And therefore, Lord is the greatest. But there is someone who is greater than the Lord. That is a devotee of the Lord. And they are the greatest because they engage in devotional service. So let us all try to become devotees of the Lord. By becoming devotees of the Lord, we carry the Lord in our heart. And when we carry the Lord in the heart, we carry the entire universe in our hearts. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Satyaki asked Krishna a question. He asked Krishna, was he not partial to Arjun or rather favorably inclined to Arjun? Satyaki asked Krishna like this. Krishna replied, I don't love anyone more than Arjun in this world. In every instance, it was Krishna who came to Arjun's rescue. Whether it is the war of killing Jayadratha or the of killing of Karna, protecting them from Naranastra, so many ways in Mahabharata. The Lord was more tensed for protecting Arjun, and Arjun was relaxed. And every night he would have a good sleep. Knowing that I have surrendered to the Lord, and now the Lord will protect him. The result of engaging in devotional service is that you conquer the heart of the Lord. And once you have conquered the heart of the Lord, that is the perfection of one's life. So all the endeavor that we are doing in understanding the Gita, in trying to chant the holy names, in trying to do so many things in Krishna consciousness, is simply to win the heart of the Lord. And when you win the heart of the Lord, everything else you get. And that's what the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita says. And that is what Krishna is trying to instruct us through this beautiful 15th chapter, which is called the Yoga of the Supreme Person. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Any quick questions or comments, please? Yes, Manjula Mataji.
Prabhu, just want to thank you for the class. I just wanted to ask one question. Like we said in 15:15 that Paramatma sits in everybody's heart and from him comes remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. It also states that he's the one um, who authorizes or who sanctions activities. I've always wondered when people do wrong things, how is it that Paramatma at that time is also sanctioning for the wrongdoings? How do we understand this, please? Thank you.
Sanction doesn't mean approve. Sanction doesn't mean that he wants you to do it. Sanction simply means, see, like say, for example, a person, you walk into a bank and you have your money in your account, bank account, and you want to withdraw that money. You need someone's signature, right, to at least even withdraw that money. The fellow who is signing that authorization for you to withdraw your money, does he ask you how you're going to use your money? He just signs it. He is not bothered how you're going to use your money. It's up to you. You figure it out. So that's how the Lord is. The Lord just sanctions. Doesn't mean that He approves our actions. He just sanctions it. It's a very mechanical thing. And whatever we desire, whatever we want to do, He just sanctions it. That's all. And He doesn't interfere in our karma. He doesn't interfere into our lives. He doesn't interfere into our choices. And He doesn't even interfere in the consequences of the choices. But
Right.
if someone is a devotee, the Lord gives them the intelligence. And the Lord personally takes responsibility of their lives.
Right. So only when we turn a devotee, he will
That's
interfere in life, but not otherwise.
That's like it's like a banker who is signing, doing that authoritative signature, and he sees his son has come to withdraw money. Naturally, the banker will ask, now, what are you going to do with the money to his son? Isn't it? So that
True.
relationship is not a normal banker relationship. It's a family now. So when you become devotees of Krishna, it's something different for him. It's a very personal affair. So he's concerned.
Yes, Prabhu. Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Anil, go.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, when you gave the example of the Shishya seeing the people fight, why God fights God like that. So, what should be, means some kind of this situation when somebody asks these kind of foolish things in front of us, how we should handle it?
About which one? The Guru?
You said that person Shishya was going and he saw two people and said, why God is fighting God if everywhere God is there?
Yeah.
So if this kind of situation comes in front of us, how we should handle it?
If an elephant, if elephant is running towards you, you please run away, Baba. You step away. See, the thing is, philosophy cannot be blindly followed. You have to use your intelligence while you follow philosophy. So, yes, the philosophy is there, God is everywhere and in everything. But the application of the philosophy, you have to use your intelligence for it. So this disciple was just theoretically following the philosophy, but he didn't realize that there's a deeper application to the philosophy.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Harshita ji?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much. Every time I just thank you for amazing stories you give. In a verse, I think you connect with 4 to 5 stories, and thank you for my weekly story bedtime for my kids. I just note down your stories in brief, and so I just wanted to thank you today for this good story session. I got my weekly story time for my kids. Secondly, Prabhu, actually, last time it was late. The question I wanted to ask last time, I had noted that it can be connected to today's verse also. It was, Prabhu, about faith in Krishna. So, one Mataji had also asked a similar question. I don't remember that Mataji's question, but my question is that obviously I can say that I have faith in Krishna. I am grateful. I write journals and all that, but when I get triggered very fast, I get shaken very fast, obviously. When some situation is heavy on me, at that time, my faith is shaken. Obviously, a question arises that why me? Yeah. Uh, why so bad happened to me? मतलब वो faith उस समय shaken हो जाता है थोड़ा सा. तो मेरा ये क्वेश्चन है कि अगर कुछ बुरा भी होता है या हम कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस देखते हैं कि ये बुरा हो सकता है, इस सिचुएशन का वर्स्ट कॉन्सिक्वेंस ये भी हो सकता है, बट दैट टाइम my faith is shaken, so I want my faith to be determined. So what practice should I do for that?
See, when we practice our spiritual lives, Krishna is not guaranteeing us that everything will happen by the way we want it to happen. He's not giving us any guarantee like that. And that is not the reason we should come to Krishna also, right? So, if things happen the way we want it to happen, it's great. But if it doesn't happen the way we want it to happen, I think we should really be considerate enough to understand whether we deserve what we desire. So, one is, desiring something, but second is feeling that I actually deserve it. So, of course, I'm talking about from a positive point of view. Even from a negative point of view, if you come across a situation in your life that you didn't feel you deserve, but it is happening to you. The question is, what makes you think you don't deserve it? Somehow, we tend to have a very superior feeling about who we are. So we somehow feel that we are so great that bad things should never happen to us. We don't deserve all the bad things. And we only deserve all good things in our life. What makes you say that? What makes you feel that? What makes you feel convinced that you only deserve the best? That your previous karma doesn't actually um, entail the bad that is happening to you in your life, So I feel that a good devotee is someone who understands the intentions of God and who understands that the laws of God act perfectly. If we're getting something in our life, I think we should think that we deserve it. And in fact, we should think that we deserve worse, but Krishna is only giving us a little bit, like a token of what we really deserve. And I'm grateful to Krishna for taking care of me. That's the way a devotee should think. And if you get something more than what you deserve, what you think you deserve, again you should be grateful to the Lord that He has given me more than what I deserve. The interesting thing is that when we get more than what we deserve, we don't think that why we're getting more. Only when we get more suffering than what we think we deserve, then we get wild on Krishna and we start losing faith and etc. Am I
Yes,
making sense to
Prabhuji.
you?
Yes, Prabhuji, it's clear. Deserve and desire, I got the line. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Revati Priya Mataji?
Thank you very much for a fantastic class. Prabhu, just a quick one. You said that Krishna is always indicating in our lives, and we kind of fail to understand what kind of knowledge or understanding do we.
Usually, when Krishna wants to give you some indication, that indication comes at least thrice in your life.
Okay.
You get the same indication 3 times from 3 different sources.
Right.
Of course, if you are insensitive and if you are dull, you will not see even one of them.
Right.
But if you are sensitive and smart enough, you will see all 3 of them. And if the same indication comes from 3 different sources, then you should know it's Krishna who is speaking to you. That's my little analysis. Okay.
This could be anyone, or it has to be like the sources would be devotees, true devotees.
It could be anything and anyone. Krishna can communicate to us through trees. Krishna can communicate through us to animals. Krishna can communicate through us to total non-devotee strangers. When Hanumanji was in Lanka, Krishna was communicating, Ram was communicating to him through one demoness. Trijata over there, he was giving him through the dream of Trijata. Ram was communicating with Hanumanji what he wants him to do. So, potentially, Krishna can communicate to anyone. Okay.
Waiting for the indication for some things in life.
Yeah.
I need your blessing, Prabhu. Thank you very much for a lovely class. Hare Krishna. Danda Pranam.
Ashwini?
Dr. Vilas, you mentioned in one of the story that uh, God gave us ability, or Krishna gave us ability to remember or memorize the things as well as forget the things. But usually what happens, we tend to forget good things very quickly, but it takes time to forget anything bad. It's very hard to forget all those things, and they keep on bugging you. So why that happen, and what are the ways that we can increase our ability to forget those things?
You're talking about ways in which you can remember good things.
Remember good things, of course, but forget bad things quickly.
See, our memory is like a pen drive. Different people have different capacity pen drives. Like somebody has an 8 GB pen drive, somebody has a 32 GB, somebody has 128 GB pen drive. So each of us have a certain amount of memory according to our karma and according to the way our bodies are designed. The question is, and there are two types of memory: there's short-term memories and long-term memories. Usually, most of the things that we first absorb are stored in short-term memory. But what is in the short-term memory, if you keep reading it, keep talking about it, keep remembering it, keep recalling it, it eventually gets stored in long-term memory. If you don't recall it, if you don't read it again, if you don't remember it again, it will immediately get deleted in some time, from the short-term memory. It goes away. Therefore, a lot of things that happen to us in our life, mostly it remains in short-term memory, it goes away immediately. But there are certain things that we keep remembering again and again and again, and then it goes into the long-term memory. So the question is, what are we filling our long-term memory with? We don't have to worry so much about short-term memory because anyway it is short, right? But we have to really worry about what we send into our long-term memory. That is why if you keep chanting the holy names again and again and again, over a period of time it goes into long-term memory. That is why if you keep hearing classes, hearing Gita again and again and again, over a period of time it goes into long-term memory. But unfortunately, most of the time we are sending into long-term memory those recollections, those incidents, those things that are so harmful and so hurtful to us. By recalling it again and again, by talking about it again and again, by remembering it again and again. And therefore, we're stuffing our entire memory capacity by such negative experiences. Rather than stuffing our memory capacity with gratitude, things to be grateful for, with holy names, with beautiful kirtans, with beautiful verses, with beautiful learnings. Rather than that, we're stuffing our long-term memory with all these bad things. It's up to us, right? How we want to use it. Okay. Anilji, last question.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, question is on the chanting. Like increasing our chanting will help us to be come out of the question like what Mataji just asked. Okay, this is the problem with everybody, that even while chanting we get some time of thoughts. We try to keep it away and focus on the holy name. But doing more chanting will help us, or doing proportionally chanting and seva will help us?
Yeah. See, the order always has to be health, japa, and then seva. The priority has always be you take care of the health first, and then you take care of the chanting, and then after that you take care of seva. So basically, you should have a prescribed number of rounds that you chant on a daily basis. You shouldn't go below that. Over and above that, if you have more time, you can always do seva. But you cannot compromise chanting for seva. That's not the way it works. The order has to be always health first, then japa, then seva.
So if I have the options, I can do more rounds than my
You can always do more
minimum,
rounds. You can always do more rounds.
and don't go for seva. Will that be?
So basically, the thing is, what happens is there is always a limit for everything.
Yeah.
See, to chant more, you should want to chant. You shouldn't just force yourself to chant, right?
Yeah.
Mechanically, just forcing yourself won't help you. So there are certain number of rounds that you should do as a vow. Over and above that, you do if you feel like doing, if you are happy to do, feel inspired to do. Don't do because somebody else is doing. Don't do because you want to show someone else that you are doing. Don't do because I want to do a certain number.
Yes.
Do because I want to do. Do because I love to do. That's the level at which we should do our chanting.
Yeah. Thanks. I got the answer actually. Thank you. Thank you.
Mamtaji, this is the last question we'll take for today.
Yeah, Prabhuji, this is related with last two questions that Mataji asked. Like personally saying, like I have witnessed some traumatic situations in my childhood. Like I was very young. Now, how much ever I tried to forget them, I am not able to delete it from my memories. And it's usual, like as humans, that whatever you see in your childhood, it somewhere sticks to your memory. How much ever we try to like I chant, like I've tried many times, but sometimes or the other, those pictures come up suddenly, like they flash up in our memory again, and they keep disturbing us.
So if it is a very traumatic thing which is really disturbing you and making you dysfunctional, you should seek help. There are many professional ways in which people can help you, especially psychologists can help you overcome the trauma. So if it is really making you so disturbed and dysfunctional, you should definitely seek help. But if it is something that is normal, which can be dealt with on a normal, and it's not making you dysfunctional, then just don't focus on it. Focus on something better. That's the way to deal with it. So
Okay.
it depends on what exactly it is. Okay.
Yeah, probably here, a question always arises that, like, why did I witness this? There is always a reason. Whatever, I've understood till now, that there is always a reason. Nothing happens without reason. So what was the reason for me in childhood to witness that? I have not gone through it, but I have witnessed it. So what was the reason behind, like with me witnessing it?
See, the thing is, we are born in the material world. We have to witness a lot of things that we don't want to.
Okay.
It's unfortunate. It's a part of the package, right? If you
Yeah.
buy this package, you will also get this. So suffering not necessarily is something that you have to go through. When you see somebody else is suffering, it's also equally suffering, right? So when we
Yes.
say, there is suffering in this material world, it is not only suffering that you go through. It is suffering that you see also in this material world. That also is equal suffering, basically.
Yes.
The very fact that we are born in this material world means that we will see suffering, we will experience suffering. And that is the impetus for us to get out from this material world. That is the very impetus that we need to get out from this material world, right? So the more suffering that you see and experience in your life, it should give you the impetus to say that I don't want to come back into the material world again. That is enough impetus for us to become serious about our spiritual journeys. And if anybody goes through suffering and sees suffering and doesn't become serious about their spiritual journeys, it is just stupidness, it is foolishness.
Yeah, I can say that, yes, that feeling has already come in me that, now I don't want to enter this world again.
Probably that is the reason you went through it.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah,
Definitely
thank you very
pray
much.
that Krishna
Hare
gives you the
Krishna.
strength and energy to forget it and overcome it. But more than importantly, Krishna gives you the strength to actually use that as an impetus for you to become more serious in your spiritual journey.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everyone. We will not be having class for the next 2 weeks because I'll be traveling. I'm going to Varanasi the next week, and the week after that, I'll be in Ayodhya, Prayag, and Chitrakoot. I'm going to pray for all of you very intensely in each and every one of these holy places. I'll pray that all of you grow in your spiritual journeys wonderfully. We will meet back again in the first week of January, and we'll continue our Bhagavad Gita journey. So we have 3 more chapters, 16, 17, and 18. So we will be completing the whole of Jan. We'll complete the Bhagavad Gita. So literally, we have about 4 classes left. So I would highly urge all of you to attend all these 4 classes of Gita in Jan sincerely and live if possible, so that you will get the best benefit of it. And then I would love to serve all of you through these 4 classes. Thank you. Hare Krishna.